Hi there, and welcome again to my basement. Welcome to the superpilotish channel here on YouTube. My name is Graham Wilson, and today we're going to be talking about kicking some butt from my basement. All right, so today I was going to talk about a little story of one of my students I had when I used to be a flight instructor, and I'll keep it semi-anonymous, and we'll call him Brian. Okay, so Brian was one of I made a few little notes here too, just so I don't forget anything. Yeah, Brian was one of my first students that I got when I started instructing a little, probably 12 years ago. And Brian was he had taken his very first introductory flight, and if I remember correctly, is about 1996. So he'd been on and off with flying for many years, starting up, stopping, moving from one city to another, kind of like me. So I have years in my logbook where I didn't fly, and so I kind of had something in common with Brian, and I inherited him from another instructor named Bill. And so Brian and I hit it off just great. And he was, I could tell right from the start, like, yeah, this guy's got what it takes to be a pilot. You can just kind of tell that with some people that they take it pretty seriously, and you can tell they got a head on their shoulders and should be able to do it with some work, of course. And so one of Brian, we'd go flying around, and I thought, wow, this guy is going to be totally ready for his flight test in no time. Really, he was pretty good at hands and feet, and so he was coming along just fine, and then he kind of disappeared for a bit. And Brian would do this over the years. He would come back, and then he would come back, start doing great, and then disappear again. But I always used to say, and I still go by the my little saying of life always gets in the way of flying. So we were trying to figure out at the where I was working, how can we get this guy to, like, okay, first we got to get him to do his written exam. He's done his ground school, great, and we got to get this guy to do his written exam. Maybe that will motivate him a little bit more because his flying's fine, and he could go on and get his license. So it was funny the one time that one of the girls that worked there, she also had a part-time job as like a cashier at a grocery store in the town that this guy lived in. And so one time Brian was in the store, and they kind of knew each other from where I was working and where he was learning how to fly. And she told the she told one of the like the guys that like stocked the shelves, is like, okay, you see that guy over there? Go ask him when he's going to do his written exam. And so the guy was like, huh? So, but he did it. He went over and talked to Brian and said, oh, excuse me, sir, when are you going to do your written exam? And he was looking around like, he told me about that. It was pretty funny. And so that was one little thing. And then we kind of pushed him and pushed him and pushed him. And after like years of this, uh, he finally got his written exam done. But in the meantime, like he would I'd sign him out to go fly solo, and part of it too is that he was just so comfortable in the airplane that he I would ask him, oh, okay, Brian, you got to practice this stuff, make sure when you go up there, okay, you got to practice your slow flight, you got to practice your stalls. Steep turns were good, but we'd throw a couple of those in there, and we'd come out like a nice little shopping list of everything that Brian should go practicing. So he would go up flying, and this happened like all the time. He goes up, beautiful day, and then he comes back, and I'm like, all right, Brian, how did all your air exercises go? Good landings, everything all right? Did you practice all that stuff? And he would just look at me and go, nah, didn't do it. My buddy Eddie, he was having a barbecue, so I thought I'd fly over there. Then I went over and flew over my house, and then I kind of did a little circle around where I worked, and I came back in and landed. And like, I'm like, dude, you gotta practice this stuff, right? And he's like, yeah. So, anyways, he one thing led to another, and he ended up getting his written test done. Great. Okay, he's halfway there now. We just got to get him ready for the flight test. And same thing happened. And now life does get in the way of flying, so he had some personal issues to take care of. That's, and I'm not judging anybody for that. But then he would kind of disappear for 3 months and disappear for a month, and then he was saying, "Okay, Graham, I'm getting really close to retirement here. I got to make sure I get my pilot's license before I retire." And I said, "Okay." And he said, he told me, he's like, "Graham, I want you to kick my," well, he was working as a millwright, so his language was a little bit less kid friendly, as I'll say, but he wanted me to kick his butt, right? And I was like, "Okay, man." Like, I usually, when I teach, I let the student. Try to stay in a sort of relaxed state with just a little anxiety to push him, because that's, you can push him a little bit. Well, over a certain amount, you don't learn anything. So you can, and it takes a while to figure out what that limit is. I mean, I was doing normal kid gloves. Okay, let's do this, being pleasant with him. And and then he's like, "Oh, you want me to kick your butt, do you?" And he says, "Yeah, I want you to kick it hard." And I'm like, "Well, okay, here we go. You asked for it, buddy." And then it's like, "Yeah, all right, I'm gonna kick his butt. We're gonna get this flight test done." And he disappeared for another month. And I was like, "Okay, first of all, once you're flying, if you don't fly after a while, the little tiny, your general flying skills are okay, and they stay with you for quite a while. But it's all the little things, like little nuances of, I don't know, a little thing of your radio work, or some little procedure that, oh, I should bring out a checklist for that. Little things you forget, and you got to polish those things right up for your flight test." So I said, "Okay, how am I going to kick Brian's butt?" Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, it was probably around February. It was kind of slow around there with the bad weather. So I got on the old Crappy Tire website, and I'm looking at all these different types of boots that I can. So I don't, in aviation, you got to play things safe, right? So if I'm going to kick this guy's butt, I want to make sure I got a good steel-toed certified boot that's appropriate for the weather conditions. And, so I was trying to think, what's the best boot that I could kick this guy's butt with? And then, but I figured I would just ask him, but I would have to show it visually, So I printed up and enlarged a few different styles of boots. So I would have like a rubber boot with a steel toe. That'd be good if it's raining outside. There's also like a cold weather boot. If we were in the snow, I could kick his butt and not hurt my feet too much. Maybe if this didn't happen until the summertime, we could have a low rise kind of shoe, like a steel toed loafer. That might be good. And well, he's a bit of a biker himself, so he might appreciate a nice square toed cowboy boot, kicking him in the butt. They sell those too with steel toes. So it was like, I'll let him decide, because he's more of an expert than me. He's an up to date millwright. I used to have one certain type of boot that I wore when I was a machinist. It had to be chip resistant, but so I sent him a whole stack of all these little different types of boots, and with questions on there and comments on them. And now this is the one thing I've found over my many years, is that if you send something to somebody with snail mail, it almost always gets to them, unless you're somebody that's a really big public figure. But like, if you want to get a message to like a company, or human resources department, sales department, if you can find out the actual person, write an actual letter, stick that stamp on it, put it in a mailbox, it'll probably get to them. And so I was like, "Okay, let's end it." And it's effective. They have it right there in front of their face. And it's like somebody took some time and effort to write this letter. So I said, "Okay." I wrote a little letter, put all the different, I kind of blew them up, and all these different types of boots that Brian could choose to have his butt kicked with. And I mailed it off. And then uh, it was about, I don't know, a couple days later, ring, ring, phone call where I was working. He's like, "Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, that's cute. Okay. Okay. I got it. I got it. Let's go. Let's do this." And after that, I said, "Okay, we got to keep this consistent." And even if it's once a week, twice a week, keep it consistent. And he said, great. Yeah, we'll do that. And as it turned out, he got his wish, and it turned he had some vacation time before his official. If I remember it correctly, he had like about a week's vacation, I think, that he used up before his official retirement date. And he did his right on his retirement date. He did his flight test, and he got his license. So that was, that was really, that was cool that we got that all done. And yeah, so Brian's kind of a motivational story where if you if you're if you really want to get something done, something that means a lot to you, and like he did, he as he puts it, he was on the 20-year plan to get his pilot's license, but he got it. He didn't give up. And if you don't give up, there's probably someone along the way that can kick your butt or help you out. And so yeah, Brian's still flying today. And anyways, hopefully that'll be a motivation for somebody, and whether you're an instructor or a student or whoever. Okay, that was that. And okay, another thing that I was going to talk about today was now, because I was I'm just looking here. I have my my official. What do we got here? The Flight Instructor Guide. There we go. That's the Bible of flight instruction in Canada. So there was a certain part of this book where they say that you to be a good instructor, you should use humor. It's actually in there. I'm not going to exactly hunt through it, but the humor that you use is very important. Now, Brian and I got along really well, and he asked me specifically to kick his butt. So don't go doing all this stuff unless they specifically ask you for it. Okay. You can now. I like to joke around a lot, and so sometimes when you're joking around, you can kind of push things a little too far. Like there's a fine line there between like, oh, that's hilarious, and ooh, dude, you shouldn't say that. That'll happen. So that's happened to me a lot, but I don't know. I think the risk is worth it. And yeah, so the one thing, if you are going to use some type of humor, make sure that you have a really good relationship with your student. And also there's this learning factor, is what they call it in Canada. There's these different learning factors that you try to incorporate into a lesson. And one of the learning factors is effect. Okay, now effect means you walk away from the lesson with a good feeling, basically. And right in the official Flight Instructor Guide, it says to avoid ridicule and sarcasm. It says right in the book. So no one likes a sarcastic instructor. And I quote, "You may feel that it might take the place of humor. However, students seldom have the same feeling, especially if they are the butt of the remark." And that's kind of why I thought we could kick butt. If they're the butt of the remark, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, not all the humor works all the time. But anyways, that's about it for today. Yeah, so it's a beautiful day out there today. I'm going to be planting tomatoes tomorrow, getting my garden all ready today for that. And don't see anybody in the live chat today, but that's okay too. You can always leave a comment below, and I'll take all the subscribers I can get. And so that's about it for today. Have a great weekend, and we're gonna shut her down. Oh, another thing about shutting her down. I found myself saying that all the time here at the end. It's like, shut her down. What one machine shop I used to work at years ago, up in Sudbury, it was I won't mention the name of it, but I was working the steady afternoon shift, and at the end, everyone's rushing around and they're emptying out all their metal chips and kind of sweeping up their machine a little bit to clean up. So right as soon as the buzzer went, as soon as it was time to go, punch out, run out the door, and that's it. You're home. So, yeah, whenever you hear me saying "shut her down," it's because I have this in my head where everybody would there was this guy there, Willie, and so sometimes Willie would be working there, and he wanted to, everyone's getting ready to get out, and Willie's still emptying out the chip bins, this little metal chips, metal shavings, and so everyone would be like, okay, when it's about quarter to, all right, shut her down. Everyone was like, shut her down, and then all the machines shut down and it's all quiet. And then you can hear the forklift going and Willie's still driving around. Then everyone starts saying, "Shut her down, Willie, shut her down." And he's like, "I just got to empty out some more chips and shut her down." And everyone starts screaming, "Shut her down, Willie." And so it was kind of fun to do, yell her out, "Shut her down, Willie." And then you started saying that like it's time for lunchtime, "Shut her down, Willie." And Willie was a good guy. He lived in Copper Cliff, but he was originally from Manitoulin Island. And, okay, one little story about Willie, and then we'll shut her down, Willie. Yeah, so Willie was he was from Manitoulin Island, and this is like one of the reasons I almost wanted to move to Manitoulin Island, but just didn't kind of things didn't quite work out there. Uh, and decided against it. But Manitoulin Island is a really cool place. And so Willie grew up there, and he was telling me he went back to the island for the weekend, and he went to the bar. It was it the Anchor? I think Anchor Inn or Anchor Bar. So he was coming out of the Anchor, and he was just just had some met some old friends there, and then he was just gonna walk home to his daughter's house, and so the local police, OPP, they pull up there, the police, and they see this old guy walking down the street. They say, "Hey, you need a ride home?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." Okay, hop in the back. So the old and he had a chat with the police officer, and I guess they had people they knew in common and that. And then they pull up, and 2 o'clock in the morning in front of his daughter's house, and here's Willie getting out of the police car, and the daughter's freaking out. "What'd you do? What'd you do?" It's like, "Oh, you just gave me a ride home." So I thought that was pretty cool that the local policeman just saw this old guy and thought he'd give him a ride home from the bar. So that was that was pretty cool. So now we're gonna shut her down, Willie, and you guys have a great weekend. Okay, bye.